and welcome to another episode of the Bellow Grace podcast, where we are helping you transform your life, mind, body, and soul. Whether you are struggling to find balance, using unhealthy behaviors or substances to cope, or you just want to unlock the root cause of what's holding you back, Bellow Grace Coaching can help you transform your life, mind, body, and soul. And this week, we are doing that by talking about, Rosie, you want to tell them what we're talking about?
Hoarding.
Hoarding.
Yes. So a lot of people don't know this, but that's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Holding on to things that do not serve us.
Yeah.
Whether it is with holding on to a lot of material things in our home where we don't even know where to walk through because we have to make little paths, or everything's all over the place and it's messy and it's so unhealthy for your mental, emotional, and physical being.
Yeah.
There's also the reason why I wanted to talk about this.
Yes.
Teresa,
I was laughing because when she brought it up, I was cracking up. I didn't think she was serious. And then she started taking me through.
She doesn't take me serious, guys. I don't blame her because half of the time I don't take myself serious.
She's super.
I am, but it's all for a good cause.
Yes.
But
so tell us,
life shouldn't be taken so seriously sometimes, right?
Yeah.
There's a moment and a time and a place.
Yeah.
So the reason I brought it up is because there's this show on Netflix. It's called Hoarders. And I was telling Teresa that I've been watching it, right? Because I just don't have anything better to do in my life right now, and I want to see someone else's mess, right? Well,
We're drawn to those shows.
I find it so interesting, and I always wonder like what got them to that point.
Yeah.
And I always want to know, and I'm curious because it's just so interesting to me, and it's fascinating. Is wow, amazing. So let me tell you the story about this young lady.
Yeah.
So it all started because I was just like, well, let's watch it, right? I have kids, and my son has a very messy room. He's very creative, but he doesn't like to clean up, and I don't blame him. He's a kid. I don't like cleaning up either, but I have to for my well-being and their well-being, right? So I was like, hey, you need to clean your room because if you don't, it's going to turn into that. And he said, but it's not like that. And that's worse. And I said, and I told him, well, I know your room is not that messy, but it could get like that. And he was like, yeah, but it's not. And I said, but it could. And I was like, okay. Well, yesterday I was watching the show and this young lady came on. So she talked about her childhood trauma. When she was 6 years old, her mom got diagnosed with this disease that enabled her physical ability. She wasn't able to move. Basically, she became a vegetable. I can't I don't remember what it was called, but I know that her mom wasn't able to move. Like I said, she was a vegetable. So she being the oldest at 6 years old, a child, she had to change her mom's diapers on the sofa, and she had to feed her mom, and they basically switched roles.
Yeah.
She
became the caregiver.
Yes. At 6 years old. And I just couldn't, I mean, guys, like my heart just broke because at 6 years old, you're in kinder or first grade. You're coloring, you're playing with your dolls, you're going outside. Your mommy still probably showers you, fixes your hair, gets you ready for school. But no, she wasn't. She was taking care of her mom and her younger sister while her dad would be around, but he would go out most of the time and he wasn't present, I guess, because he couldn't deal with the situation. So he would escape. That's what her dad did, leaving the 6-year-old child with the huge responsibility of adult. Right?
Yeah.
So she, at once she was her mom passed away eventually. Once she was a teenager, she lost her younger sister to diabetes. And she moved in with her grandma. Her grandma later on passed, but before she passed away, she recalls her grandma always talking about, always talking about her sister and her mom, how they needed help and how all these things. And she's like, she was just always talking about them.
Mhm.
And I realized that the thing that she needed, she didn't like that her grandma would always talk about her mom and her younger sister, not because she hated them, but because no one acknowledged her. She was invisible. At
Mhm.
6 years old, she wasn't seen for everything that she did.
Yeah.
So she not only did she feel abandoned, rejection, and she wasn't seen or heard, she was always taking care of her mom, her younger sister, herself, her grandma, and no one ever acknowledged her.
Mhm.
So she carried on a lot of trauma from a very young age.
Yeah.
And she started her when her grandma passed away, she I guess inherited the house, and she started piling up stuff, boxes that didn't have anything in it, just one small item. It's like
Mhm.
she was keeping those boxes because she thought she might need them.
Mhm. Mhm.
So her house went from livable to unlivable, and she had to move to the back porch because she couldn't live inside anymore. It
Yeah.
was not safe at all. And she lives in British Columbia.
Mhm.
And I never been there, but I'm assuming from the show that they have really harsh winters,
Mhm.
and there's no way anyone can
Yeah.
survive. And she was
Yeah.
camping outside, and they were like, well, no, let's just get you inside and clean out at least one room so you can live. And she was having such a hard time when they brought everything out. She was having such a hard time um letting go of empty boxes. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Amazon should sponsor her or something, because they had the Amazon logo and tape everywhere. And I was just like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
No, hoarding as a mental
wow.
health disorder, mental health issue is fascinating to me. Because they do, people who struggle with hoarding um, have an emotional connection to the stuff that they hoard. And
Yeah.
when you try to take it away, they oftentimes will suffer from anxiety attacks, and
Panic
panic
attacks.
attacks because you are taking something away that they have
Or holding on to.
grown an attachment to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that item is linked to a part of their brain. Like it is,
That keeps them safe.
mhm,
That makes them feel.
yeah,
Yeah.
whole and
Yeah.
secure and all the things.
Yeah. It just broke my heart, Teresa,
Mhm.
to see how she couldn't seem to let go of those boxes.
Mhm.
Like, it was day 3 and there was still nothing in the recycling bin they had,
Yeah.
or container they had put in front of her house so that she could get rid of those boxes. Those
Mhm.
boxes literally stayed in her front yard till the end. And she just couldn't. And she kept
Mhm.
jumping. You can see the trauma on her because she kept jumping from like one box to the other, and then she was calm, and then something someone did would trigger, and she would go back into her child 6-year-old self. And
Mhm.
you can see it, you can see the trauma, you can see the pain. And it was a lot for me to watch because I was like, oh my goodness. And she had spent over $100,000
Mhm.
from for different healing methods. It was crystals, she was doing therapy oils, she had done a lot of like healing therapy sessions with
Mhm.
groups and individuals, and
Nothing was
because
working.
nothing was working.
Mhm.
But and even they always in these shows they always bring a psychologist person to try to knock some sense into them, to try to speak to them and
Mhm.
get them to get the root cause so they can like,
Start to heal from it and
yes, and
untangle it. Yeah.
make some sense into things. What she couldn't connect with her, and she couldn't break in.
Yeah.
There was just this disconnection, and you
Yeah.
can just see the pain and the hurt and the trauma that was behind her. And I was just like, crying because I was like, oh my goodness, like you poor thing. Like
Yeah.
that is so unnatural. And I'm sorry that that happened to you. And it was just like these things. And I was like, oh, and she had such a joyful, bubbly personality, but you can also see the pain and the disconnection
Mhm.
and how she was in that cycle that just wouldn't let her breathe and she couldn't free herself from.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why she was holding on to these things. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, and I was thinking, oh my God, like that's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Hold, holding on to things that we think we need or that are keeping us safe sometimes are not, and they're actually hurting us. They're bad for our health.
So deep. So
Yeah.
deep. So
Sorry, guys. I like to go in deep and serious real
yeah,
quick.
real quick. Like she just like straight to it.
Yes.
Yeah. And when you were telling me this story before we started
Yeah.
recording, like I immediately thought of all of the behaviors and mindsets and emotions that we hold on to, that we
Yeah.
hoard, that we can't let go of because
Mm.
we think they are comforting us and we think they're keeping us safe. We think that they're helping us
Yeah.
and they're not. For her, it was boxes, it was stuff, right?
Yeah.
But for some people, it's drinking, it's that best friend that you think is in your corner, you think they have your back, like you think they're going to always be there for you, but they're not really
Holding
good
on
for
to
you.
relationships, holding on to
Mhm.
people, even work or if it's or even materialistic things that
Mhm.
you've just been holding on for a very long time because you're
Yeah.
afraid to lose whatever that brings to you or you
Mhm.
think it's bringing to you,
Yeah.
and you're afraid of letting go because you have lost either someone or something, and that's probably the only thing that you have control of,
Ooh, yeah.
and you think it's helping you, but in the long run it's not because
Mhm.
it's not creating new space, or should I say it's like hoarding all this in you that it's not allowing space for new beginnings, new
New
things
growth, yeah.
in you because you're still holding on to that mess.
Mhm. Yeah, so I when you were saying that, it immediately made me think of relationships, like
Mm.
intimate relationships. Like
Mm.
um I know a lot of times we will hold on to a marriage, a relationship
Mhm.
simply because we don't know who we are without it.
Mhm. It
And
keeps us feeling,
yeah,
it gives us a sense of safety, of
yes.
control, yeah.
Yeah, because maybe you have had several failed relationships and you're like, I'm going to make this one work. Come hell or high water, this relationship is going to work.
Mm.
And you push aside the fact that it is an unhealthy relationship. You push aside the fact that you're constantly fighting. You push away the fact that you are constantly being hurt. You push away the fact that they're cheating. You push away the fact that they're lying. You push away the fact that you just aren't in sync anymore because you so desperately want to hold on to a relationship that you are willing to sacrifice yourself for it.
And sometimes it's not that you're just willing to hold on to a relationship. Sometimes is that you're holding on to certain things that make you feel like that is it's familiar to you because that's what you saw or you grew up with,
Mhm.
and you're holding on to that, whether it's patterns, whatever it is that you grew up um in that familiar environment. Maybe it's a different person, but it's familiar to you,
Mhm.
and you're trying to hold on to it because you don't know how to live a life that is different than that, and that scares you. So although that's not safe or healthy for you, you hold on to it because that's all you know.
Mhm.
And it keeps you stuck in those same unhealthy relationships, same
Yeah.
unhealthy patterns, same mental mess, but you're afraid to let go, to move from that because you don't know any different. And
Yeah.
when you do, it's scary. And that's
Mhm.
it's so natural for you to be afraid of of stepping out to a different place where you've never been.
Yeah.
And that's okay, but it's very normal. And sometimes that is the best thing that you can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be so terrifying to step
Yeah.
out into the unknown.
Very.
And the girl in the show, her normal was living on her back porch because she
Yeah.
had grown so accustomed to having all of the things in her house that getting rid of them was terrifying.
Yeah.
Stepping into that unknown is terrifying. And so we'll instead hoard the emotions, the relationships, the
She
things
didn't
for
know how
comfort.
to let go because I feel like, in a sense, she was still holding on to her loved ones and
Mhm.
their belongings. And she was holding on to all of that because she
Mhm.
kn- she lost so much at such a young age, and she took roles at that she
Mhm.
shouldn't have at such a young age, where she was still in survival mode, and she didn't know how to escape from that, so she stayed in what seemed familiar to her.
Mhm.
And it wasn't working out for her. It
No.
wasn't setting her free. She wasn't living a good life.
Yeah. No. And the things that we hold on to, you said earlier, like it doesn't leave space for new experiences, for growth,
Mhm.
for exploration. Like when you hold on to stuff so tightly and so much of it, like if you're holding on to past hurts and
Mhm.
past trauma, and you're holding on to the fear of reliving those mistakes and repeating history, and you're holding on to a relationship because it feels safe, and you're holding on to fear of whatever, like your arms are so full that you can't make space for self exploration. You can't make space for new adventures. You can't make space for growth. You have to let go of that stuff so that you can move forward in life. Like you have to free yourself
Yeah.
because holding on is keeping you trapped.
Yeah, it's like this, Teresa. Let's say you have about 100 bricks, right?
Mhm.
On each brick, you write things that you're holding on to. It can be, um, if it's material stuff, you can, on one brick, you can write shoes. If it's hurt, you on one of them, you can put hurt, or you can put an ex boyfriend's name on whatever.
Mhm.
Try carrying all those bricks, okay? Once you're holding on all those bricks on your shoulders, on with your hands, your arms, you're going to realize that's a lot, and it's hurting your back, it's hurting your arms.
Mhm.
It's making you feel overwhelmed. Even like you thinking about all those bricks, you're like, "Oh my god." Once you
Mhm.
look at it like from a visual perspective like that, it doesn't have to be bricks. It could be a lot of flashcards that you start writing things on,
Mhm.
and then you put them on your living room floor, and then you're like, wow, I'm almost running out of room for all these cards, and I'm not even halfway there.
Mhm.
You're like, wow, I'm holding on to all these things.
Mhm.
And that's sometimes you need a visual so you can see all these things, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's all in here,
Mhm.
and you're like, you're so used to it, but once you put it out there, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my god,
Yeah.
like I'm hurting myself. I don't need to do this to myself. This is overwhelming.
Yeah. No, for sure. And oftentimes people don't even realize what they're holding on to.
No.
It has become such a normal part of their
Mm.
everyday life that they don't even see it as
Yeah.
something that they're holding on to.
Mhm.
So when my dad passed away, my mom held on to the idea of my dad for so many years. And
Mm.
she tells people this is not a secret, but she compared everyone that she dated to my dad. My
Yeah.
dad was on this high pedestal. My dad and my mom had a very tumultuous relationship. They did not have a good relationship.
Mhm.
But when he died, they were finally getting on better terms, right?
Yeah, and
And
that's how she
so,
holds on to.
yeah, and she holds on to that good part of my dad,
Mhm.
right? And that can be healthy, it can be unhealthy.
Yeah.
I had the option to do the same when my fiance died. I could have followed my mom's example,
Mhm.
which was to remember the good parts, right? And
Mhm.
to hold everyone to that standard.
Yeah.
And but instead, I took the stance of I loved this man.
Mhm.
I learned from this man. We had good times and we had bad times. And I'm going to remember the good parts that he brought out in me. He
Mhm.
taught me to love myself again in spite of my flaws. He taught me to see myself with my flaws and want to grow from those flaws.
Not
Like,
the
so
kittens.
instead of holding every man that came into my life
Mhm.
against my fiance, I used the lessons that I learned from our time together
Mhm.
to grow, right?
Yeah.
Instead of holding on to who he was and saying, okay, unless you can measure up to this guy,
Yeah.
then you can't be in my life. No, instead, I let him go. I was like, I love you and I am so grateful for the time that we had together. I will always carry you in my heart,
Yeah.
but I will not use our experience as a measuring stick for future relationships.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Of
Like,
course.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you can take the trauma and learn from it, but you don't have to hold on to it,
Yeah.
right? Like, you take the trauma, you learn the lesson, you say thank you for the lesson, trauma, and now I'm releasing you.
Yeah. From a spiritual perspective, this is what I've learned. When I'm going through something that I don't understand, I'm like, God, please help me to see what you want me to learn in this.
Yeah.
Like, this is teaching me a valuable lesson,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed to learn this. This is why I'm going through it.
Yep.
And whether I understand the season I'm in or I'm not, I always ask God to help me to see what He wants me to learn.
Yeah.
And she did brought up something so good that I was just like, oh, that was really good. She was like, she started feeling all these anger and all these emotions, and she was like, I feel angry and I feel all this, and she was crying. And and she was like, no, but feelings come up because they need to be released. And I
Yes.
said, that's good. They do. Feelings always meant to be felt and released. That's what you have to do. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. So they suppress it. They keep them
Mm-hmm.
in there because from a young age, they weren't taught how to express their feelings, how to talk about their feelings. They were shut
Yeah.
down. And you carry all this emotional mess
Mm-hmm.
where you're like suppressing it. And then one day you just blow up.
Yeah.
And when you
Yeah.
blow up, you can take it off on whoever is in front of you, around you,
Yes.
even things like you can start breaking things. Sometimes breaking
Yeah.
things does feel good.
Oh yeah.
But
That's why I have
it's
rage
not always
rooms.
healthy, right?
Yeah.
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 So it just depends on how you work that out.
Yeah.
But feelings are so important because they tell you things that sometimes you don't want to face.
Right. I was thinking about Inside Out, the new kids movie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I watched it.
it's so good.
It
But
was so
there's
good.
a line
I cried at
in
the
the
end.
movie.
Why
Oh,
should
it's
I
so
say
good.
I try not to cry at the end? I try to be an adult and I try not to cry, but it was so good. I was just like,
We went to watch it with Arthur's
yeah.
mental health connect group.
Oh, that's what
Yeah,
you did?
we
Okay.
went as a group and everyone, the whole row was crying.
No, you
Yeah.
guys actually cried.
Yeah. Yeah.
Darn, now I feel like
Yeah.
I was
Everyone was
trying to
crying on our row. But
Oh,
there's a line in there and I want to say I don't know which emotion it is, but one of the emotions is like, um, we aren't in control of who Riley becomes.
yeah.
It's when they're like fighting over who, like
Yeah,
Riley's
because Riley
personality.
knows who she is
Yeah.
because We are just here to help
Yeah.
her.
And so the emotions were trying to control who Riley became by
Right.
getting rid of the bad memories, by letting anxiety take over, like all of these things, right? The emotions were
Yeah.
trying to control who she became. But that line's,
They were controlling her life.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that line is so powerful because it came from the emotions coming to the
Yeah.
realization that they aren't supposed to be in control.
No.
And I thought that was so
Powerful.
powerful because
Yeah.
oftentimes we have emotions about trauma. We have
Mhm.
emotions about hurt.
Yeah.
We have emotions about the death of a loved one, of whatever. And are given the opportunity to feel the emotions, like you were saying, or we have the opportunity to allow those emotions to take control of
Mhm.
our lives and to shape how we react to the world around us. And Joe talked about how he feels his feelings. He allows himself to feel his feelings
Yeah.
when he was on what, 2 episodes ago. If you haven't heard Joe's episode, go back, listen to it. But he talks about how he allows himself to feel the emotions for at least a day.
Mhm.
If he's sad, if he's grieving, if he's mad, if he's angry, if he's frustrated, like whatever the emotion is,
Mhm.
he feels it for at least a day, sometimes
Mhm.
more, but he doesn't let himself stay there.
Dwell in it. Yeah.
Yes. So
Mhm.
he allows the feeling to be felt, but he doesn't let it take control. And I think that's really powerful.
And I feel like when you have feelings, it's so important to stop and think, okay, well, why do I feel sad? Why do I feel
Mhm.
angry? Like if it's been the feeling already passed, but you're still like, or the thought that caused that feeling is gone, but you still feel that way, then you need to stop.
Dig in.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And think, well, I am angry, but what am I doing right now that's causing me anger? Is it a person? Is it a past situation that is reminding me? Is it a present situation that is reminding me of something that happened to me in the past or in my childhood that's keeping me angry and it's surfacing up?
Mhm.
Then, okay. If it helps you to write about it, you can, or sometimes you can talk
Yeah.
to a friend
Mhm.
and they will help you to process your feelings or even your
Yeah.
thoughts, and then you can know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And once you know where it comes from, you're able to catch yourself next time,
Mhm.
or you're like it all can also help you release it and
Yeah.
not go there anymore.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. It'll
Yeah.
help you release it.
Hmm.
So I always like to talk about like the inner child, which you talked about
Yeah.
how you could see her inner child manifesting when
Yeah.
they were starting to get rid of the boxes, right?
And one thing, and she said something else that everyone was so shocked, and I think she was like, no, no, like I don't want to get rid of these boxes because this is, I finally get to say what I keep, what I have a say. Like I, when I was 6 years old, I didn't get to pick and say, and I had to.
Yeah.
And
So it was the loss of
she
control that was,
acknowledged,
yeah.
she acknowledged that, and that was so powerful. But I was just like, oh, like it just broke my heart because a lot of us, Teresa, are walking around with that inner child that's hurt, and
Mhm.
we keep on bleeding, and we keep on being stuck in those same thoughts and emotions and trauma that doesn't set us free. And it's like, okay, and I was just like, if I had her in front of me, I mean, I would be like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. You shouldn't have been in that situation, but I want you to know that you're safe now. You're an adult. You do have
Mhm.
control of things. I know that you didn't feel like you had control of that situation of yourself, and that happened, and you didn't have any control, and you're trying to control this because it's the only thing that makes you feel like you have a say, and
Yeah.
it's valid, but it's not okay and it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard for a lot of people to hear that, even for you to tell someone who doesn't under comprehend that stuff, because they obviously need professional help.
Yeah.
And she did get professional help after they stopped filming the program. And I was like, yes, thank you. I'm glad she did. Because
Yeah.
yes, getting all these going on all these healing things are very important, but she went to see a therapist after that.
Yeah.
And I said,
Yeah.
good, because she needed it. And
Yeah.
it's not that she was like, I'm not judgmental to where like, oh, she's crazy. Oh my God, like she's nuts.
Yeah.
It was more like, I'm glad that she's getting that
The
help
help that she needed.
because me just watching her, I'm hurting. Like I'm a
Mhm.
feeler, so I'm hurting, and I'm like, oh man, like I want you to be happy because you deserve to be happy. You
Yeah.
deserve better than what was given to you.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so I always say it's like your inner child is in your brain.
Yeah, it is.
And when something happens like her, so at the root of her hoarding, it sounds like there was a loss of control, right? She
Mhm.
was trying to regain control of
Mhm.
her life. Her inner child was trying to control as much as she could because she felt so out of control for so long.
Yeah.
And our inner child is trying to keep us safe because when they were activated, they were our defense mechanism, right? And
Mhm.
so their job is to keep us safe as adults.
Mhm.
And so they will hold on to these things that they think will keep them safe. And in her story, it's tangible boxes. But for some people, it is abstract things like fear, like um, staying in a relationship, like um, trying not to repeat past mistakes, always acting like you're happy, always
Mhm.
being a people pleaser.
Oh
Oh, but
yeah.
yeah, never rocking the boat, never stepping out and taking a risk. And so
Mhm.
your inner child is holding on to all these strings and just sitting in there, trembling, afraid to let any one of them go and sending
Yeah.
you into a tailspin as an adult. And so your inner child can't explore, can't have fun, can't be an inner child. And your inner child also inspires you to do things like go bungee jumping or go skydiving. Like that is your inner child inspiring you to
Yeah.
explore and be a kid still. But when your
Mhm.
inner child is holding on to all these different strings to try to keep you safe, there is no space for fun, right?
No, and you know what's so interesting? That you can see her inner child.
Mhm.
And I don't know if anybody else see the way I see because I can't speak for other people but myself. But I saw her inner child. You can see glimpses
Mhm.
of her
Yeah.
where and now it just made me so sad. And I'm like, how many times we walk around in these adult bodies and our inner child is still there hurt. And we're walking around being that inner child and putting it on others, and we're
Mhm.
acting like adults but our inner child is in there, so we have these unbalance of a
Right.
personality.
Yeah, it manifests a lot of times in like adult temper tantrums.
Mm,
So when adults are looking like and acting like toddlers, um
yeah.
when they don't get their way or
Hmm.
they have a meltdown, like a lot of times that is a manifestation of the inner child.
Yeah.
And so I always say like you can see it when someone's emotions are really high, whether that's joy, sadness, anger. If you've seen Inside Out, it's all of the basic emotions.
I used to I think I know that I'm very open about what I went through,
Mhm.
but I used to, when I was depressed, I used to fake my joyfulness, my
Mhm.
because I was covering it up, like
Yeah.
my depression.
Mhm.
And I also knew that people didn't want to be around anyone who was like a sour pouch or
Mhm.
depressed all the time. Well, but I realized that when it was so draining for me to pretend that I was so happy, so joyful, which I am, but now I'm a good balance of that. Now I don't
Mhm.
have to pretend because I don't have certain things anymore that I'm holding on to.
Yeah.
But whenever I did, I would get headaches because the emotions were so big it was so draining even to my own body, like having like, and I get it from time to time when I get so excited that I'm just like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, I got a headache. And that's because it was too much, because those feelings were not released. They're supposed to be released, but not in that way.
Right.
It's supposed to be a balance.
Yeah,
and
it's supposed to be a slow drip, not a dopamine rush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so as
Not so much.
I know, we talk a lot once we get on a roll.
Yeah.
But no, you were my favorite quote, and I think it's Robin Williams that said it, but he said, people don't fake depression.
No.
They fake being happy.
Yeah.
And the poor girl on the show, like, she had her moments where her real personality shone through, but most of the time
It was her inner
it
child.
was her, yes, that was hurt and scared and fearful of losing control.
She also had trusting issues. She had a cousin that she grew up with, and her cousin was always there. There were other people that came and left, and a lot of people left in her life. She was not married, she didn't have kids, but if she did, she would probably be, taking them in with her in her mess.
Yeah.
And what should I say, dragging them.
Yeah.
But her cousin tried her best to get through to her, and she couldn't, because she had already made up her mind, she's going to leave me too. So why should I trust you? Why should I care if you're in my life? And she couldn't see that her cousin was still there, trying to help her clean all that, because she loved her and she cared about her. So what her cousin had to do was like, hey, I'm here for you. I have never left. And after we help you clean all this up, I'm still going to be here.
Yeah.
And she broke down in tears. Oh, I even broke down in tears. I still because it's like you are so caught up in all these things, and you have put walls up that you sometimes fail to see who's still there for you. And like, because you're carrying all these things and you're hurt, and it was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, you need that reassurance.
Yeah. Going back to your brick analogy of, like, once you hold so many bricks, it covers your face and you can't see, and you've got these boundaries up, and like, you've got these unhealthy walls that you have built, and no one can get through, and you can't hear anybody that's on the other side trying to tell you, I'm here for you. I love you.
Yeah.
I want to help you, because the brick wall is so high.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that happened to you. Like, I'm sorry you were abandoned. I'm sorry that, all these people left, but I'm here. I'm still here. I was there with you. I'm still here, and I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
In the future. Like, they need that constant reassurance and love and kindness and support.
Yeah.
More than anything is support.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you feel like you're holding up all these bricks on your own, and you don't realize the other people that are standing next to you, because you're only caught up in your own pain, in your own thing. And sometimes other people are there holding it with you. You don't realize that, because only you think you feel it, but everyone else around you feel it too. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. Oh, you never knew that hoarding could mean so much, did you?
Yeah. You're welcome, Teresa. You're welcome. You're welcome to know.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those things that make you think about, like, what am I holding on to that it's time to let go?
Yeah.
It's no longer serving its purpose. And I try to declutter my house as much as I can, only because my house is not big. But when I see stuff starting to pile up, I'm like, okay, I'm going to deep clean, because I need to make some space, and there's things that I'm probably holding on to that I shouldn't. And
Yeah.
I tend to do that because it makes me feel better once I clear out all of that
Yeah.
and I get rid of things.
You can
But
breathe
but
better.
if I probably had more space and storage, I probably would.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then if I ever go deep clean, I realize, why am I holding 50 mugs? Why am I holding all these things that I haven't worn in years? Even I
Mhm.
do that with clothes and everything because I try my best to only keep what I want and what I need, not what I haven't used
Yeah.
in years.
Yeah, and so you need to emotionally declutter as well.
That too, yes. What are friendships, relationships that or contacts that you have on your phone that you're
Mhm.
like, okay, this doesn't serve me. We don't have a, you know.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a hurtful ending or whatever.
No,
Like it
no.
can just be, okay, I don't really see you anymore. We don't have anything in common anymore. So
Mhm.
it's just time to let that relationship go.
Yeah.
Or I,
And it's nothing personal. It's
yeah,
just like, oh, well, you stay in the old unhealed version of myself
yeah.
in the past.
And for me, that's kind of how it was with drinking. It wasn't serving me anymore. So it was time to let it go.
Mm.
Um, but doing an inventory of your life, like what behaviors am I doing that are no longer serving me?
Mhm.
What emotions do I keep turning back to that are no longer serving me?
Patterns, habits.
Yeah. What habits are no longer serving me? And making that inventory so that you know what they are. And then you can recognize when they start to creep in and change your mindset to something else. And
Mhm.
it comes with practice, like we were saying with the boundaries last week. Like the more you practice it, the more normal it becomes and the more
Easier.
the easier it is
Mm.
to choose that path. It's the
Yeah.
same
You have to
way.
rewire your brain.
Yeah, it's the same way with
Mhm.
choosing new ways of dealing with life instead of continuing to hold on to things that aren't serving you, letting them go and practicing new ways of dealing with life as it comes to you.
Yeah.
Yep. Yay.
Thank you for always just putting everything into perspective and finishing my sentence. And I don't know what I would do without you, Teresa.
You bring the stories. I wrap it up into a little cute bow.
I love how yeah, you just know what to say and you put everything together nice. You elaborate it in very nice words and put into like commas and parentheses and sentences and everything. And I just throw all these words and you just put them together.
Teamwork.
I love it.
Oh, yes, yes. Sorry, I'm all comfortable now. I'm like, whatever. But yeah, so anything else?
No.
All right.
Yeah. It's time to declutter.
It is.
Yeah.
Declutter that mind,
Mm-hmm.
that house.
Yep.
Well, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for listening
Yeah.
and sharing. And until next time, be well, be kind, and may you find some joy this week. Bye.
Bye.